Replacement windows. Not in your budget this year? Well, what if you could save 20%? Renewal by Andersen, full-service replacement window division of Andersen, are putting windows back in your budget with this exclusive podcast-only offer. You know how much I love this and what a difference it makes. You owe it to yourself, people. You save 20% on windows, 20% on patio doors, an additional $20 on every window. Don't settle for low-end vinyl windows. Renewal by Andersen's composite Fibrex window material is 2 times stronger than vinyl, and you can save 20% on windows and patio doors, plus an additional $20 off each and every window with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. The air conditioning works better. It's so much quieter. The heater's better. Everything is better. Dust is down. So for a free renewal by Andersen Windows Diagnosis, call 1-800-406-8700. Again, 1-800-406-8700. 1-800-406-8700. Dawson.
Offer not available in all areas. Restrictions and conditions apply. Call for license information.
TCL is a proud sponsor of the 1500 ESPN studios. TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand. Minnesota Vikings, the NFL, football. Yeah, football. Welcome to Purple Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Purple Podcast. Matthew Coller here, and joining us again, former NFL wide receiver Donald Jones, who just can't get enough football talk. So, Donald, let's start right out with the Minnesota Vikings. They're facing the New Orleans Saints. This is a huge game, Sunday Night Football. Now, everybody is telling me, Donald, that hey, it's no big deal. It's just another game. It's the regular season. Who cares about these storylines? We're just focused on the game tape. When you're playing big games, night games, things like that, how much different is it really?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on the show again. I guess the fan feedback has been great. So thank you, Minnesota Vikings fans. Now, in terms of playing in big games, anytime you're playing, the levels change from stage to stage, right? So you go from, especially when you're rookie year, you go from, mini camps, and then you go to training camp where it advance up a little bit, and then regular season advance up. But then when you have night games, and the entire world is watching, the entire family gets to see you because they get to see you and they get to see you at home, and there's probably a party, a bunch of people together type of thing. All of that stuff creeps into your mind, because it's something that you've always dreamed about doing your entire life. So typically on a Sunday, it's like, oh, all right, well, my family might be watching, but if they don't have the package, they're going to have to go to a bar somewhere to watch it because I'm not from that town.
Right.
But when there's a night game, everybody's watching. It's like, all right, I know if I make a bad play, the entire world is going to see this, so it can help you in a sense. It's like you can end up trying to force things because you want to make the big play. You want to make the big play, and next thing you know, you fumble or throw an interception or something like that. Yeah,
that's or you give up a miracle play in the playoffs like Marcus Williams did.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's the storyline. Right there.
Did you ever have anything like that where it was like a last-second thing, just a crazy play that you never would have seen coming?
Not a game that I played in. Not like last second. Like I've been in games where, and this is going on both sides of the winning and losing, where it's like a last minute and a half drive. I mean, we played against Brady twice a year, so we've seen it pretty much twice a year. minute and a half drive, where it's like, they go down the field easy and kick a field goal, and you're like, man, what just happened after you just scored a touchdown? And you're all excited. You give him the ball with a minute and a half left, and he scores. But just last second, last play of the game, in a big time game like that in the playoffs, nah, I've never been around something like that.
Well, you lead me into what I wanted to ask you about, is the wide receiver perspective on amazing quarterbacks, guys who look like they're just playing a different game, guys who you feel like when they're playing, it's like how good I am on Madden with just any quarterback. But you just can make any throw you want to at any time, and accurate, and reads defenses, just does everything at a brilliant level. But where Drew Brees has been even more spectacular in the last couple of years of his career, especially, in the post-San Diego days just with New Orleans, is big situations, fourth quarters, and he showed it in that game, in the miracle game against the Vikings in the second half, led 3 touchdown drives, brought them back, put them in a position to win, and he would have been remembered way differently for that game than if the miracle did not happen. So tell me from your experience about, you spent some time with Tom Brady, what a receiver sees from their quarterback in those big spots.
When you're a receiver on a team with a quarterback like that, the biggest thing you're going to see is confidence. You're not going to see a quarterback who's nervous, because you know that quarterback has been in these situations so many different times that it's almost like another regular point in the game or regular game. It's like those guys have ice in their veins, and when you step into the huddle, you don't see any type of nervousness coming from those guys. All you see is confidence oozing from them in the huddle, and you better have the same confidence. Don't be nervous when you're out there in the field with those guys. They're going to give you an opportunity to make plays. But let's be honest. I mean, wide receivers make these quarterbacks look good.
Yeah, right. I'm sure
so,
that's all it's been for Brees.
Hey, I'm just saying, Stephon Diggs had to go up to catch that ball last year. It wasn't all on the quarterback. So
okay, I will give you that
wide receiver is the sexiest position in the league. We make the plays. We put all the fans in the seats.
I will give you that one, that Case Keenum was helped out quite a bit by Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, and it was no more evident than on that play. With Brees, he's had such a long, great career that, when we talk about him, it's almost just, yeah, the guy's amazing, and what else can you say? But is there some perspective you can give as a receiver just on a daily basis with an elite quarterback, or the throws that they can make, the plays that you just wouldn't expect? What is the biggest difference there from the wide receiver when you're talking about getting the opportunity to catch the ball from that type of guy versus just an average quarterback?
This episode presented by Minnesota's very own Ticket King. If you're looking for tickets to a game or concert, visit TicketKingOnline.com or the link on the 1500 ESPN Sports Calendar page. Seats to fit every budget at all venues and all stadiums with zero fees added at checkout. Visit TicketKingOnline.com or call 612-341-4141.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is those guys, they know the game situation so much because they've been in those situations so many times. So, as a receiver, as any player on the field, you have to understand the clock, what you're trying to get done. But that quarterback, like a guy like Drew Brees or Tom Brady, they've been in these situations so many times. It's like, okay, it's a minute and a half left. We only have one timeout. I got to throw the ball to the sideline. So when you get in the huddle with them, they'll say that, like, guys, it's a minute and a half left. We only have one timeout. We got to throw the ball here. So I need you guys on the outside to get open. And that's not to say the guys on the inside don't get open, but those guys understand where it is they want to go with the ball in every single play when they're in those situations. And they're confident about it. And they're also confident in their receivers because in practice, the great coaches work situational football more in practice than anything else. Mm-hmm. They work on 2-minute drives. They work on 4-minute drives. They work on, we're trying to score a touchdown at the end of the first half or something. I mean, they work on this stuff so much in practice. And obviously, it's not the same as a game, but you rep this stuff so much that you understand what it is that you're trying to get done.
So let me ask you about some of the situations with Kirk Cousins in comparison, because when we're talking about the two, I think that there's recognition amongst everyone that Drew Brees is just on a complete other level where only Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Joe Montana, those type of quarterbacks fly, that's his altitude, and Kirk Cousins isn't in that area, but still good. But one of the things where he doesn't do as well, I think, is the situational football where we've seen the end of games, the end of halves, and on third downs and long last week against the Jets, they really, really struggled to convert. Is there a key there, something physical, or what might it be that would separate someone like Breeze from Cousins in those situations?
I just think that it's those guys have been in the situation so many times now. Like I said, Kirk Cousins, playing quarterback. Obviously, you've been in a situation like that. But when you are Drew Brees, you've been in it so many times and you've made the plays so many times that nothing is going to feel like I can't do it. Kirk Cousins might still have that feeling. He might still have in his mind, you know what? I need to prove that I'm the best quarterback out there. And when you're thinking like that, that's when you end up forcing plays and you don't make the plays. You know, Drew Brees knows he's one of the best. And he's out there like it's just another game. Let's make this play happen and let's move on to the next game.
Okay, tell me strategically how the Vikings can succeed on third down and long. It's something when they had Teddy Bridgewater they were extremely good at, and Bridgewater had this exact sort of feeling about him that even though he was only 23, 24 years old, that he was like a old man in a young man's body with the way he played in those big spots. Where I don't see that same thing from Cousins, but strategically speaking, is there something that you would say works better? I mean, I don't know, a scheme or a route combination or whatever it might be, because I'm just curious after watching that game and seeing them struggle so much, and then looking at the numbers and seeing a pretty big gap between some quarterbacks and some teams on those third downs and medium to long, where you can't run play action, you're not going to run the ball. It's just, you're going to throw, they know you're going to throw, and we see what happens.
Strategically, third and long, I think every coach, it's really on the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, to understand what it is that the team is trying to do to them on third and long. And every coach has a different idea of things that they like to call. So I played with Chan Gailey. He was more of a conservative type of coach. He would go with the screen almost every time on third and long. Screen or draw. Now it was a variation of the screen. It might have been a wide receiver screen. It might have been running back, tight end, doesn't matter. That was just his thing. Other coaches and quarterbacks are more aggressive. They might want to take a shot, down the field. It's third and long anyway. Let's take a shot down the field. It varies from coach to coach. I think that, Kirk Cousins has receivers who can work the slot. Mm-hmm. And he has guys that can get open on third and long, and so even when the defense might be expecting you to throw the ball, he has guys that can get open. So the biggest thing is strategically, don't be predictable. On third and long, you have to switch it up all the time. Don't go, 70% of the time you run a screen or a draw and everybody knows that it's coming.
Right.
And then 30% of the time, you need to be 50-50 on this third and long. First of all, you need to stay out of third and long, but if you find yourself in too many third and longs on this third and long, we need to go screen or draw. The next time we need to be aggressive so that the coaches on the other side never really get a read on what it is that you're trying to do.
One thing I noticed was that when they were in third and long, that the New York Jets just double teamed Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen all day. And I think that's the first time that I've seen it, where a team said, nope, no way. You are not getting any one-on-one situation with Stephon Diggs or Adam Thielen. We are putting two guys on both of them and make someone else beat you. What can they do if that's going to be the case for other teams after seeing what the Jets did to the Vikings with using zones but also putting two guys on them? How can they start to beat that if that's how other teams are going to play it?
Well, Adam Thielen still got off.
He did, yes.
He still got it. He still balled out, so I don't know if you can stop it. And at the end of the day, you can. What it comes down to is somebody else has to make plays. If they're and you're always gonna face a team that has the playmakers to shut you down. Some teams might not have the personnel. Other teams might have the personnel. It's a game of matchups. And sometimes teams just have the matchup that can shut your guys down. And so I would like to say that typically you're not going to be able to double team both those guys and win successfully every single week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just too good, you know. And so if you are in a game where, okay, they're double teaming both of those guys, somebody else has to step up. If it's the running backs, if it's the tight end, the Quan Trevor, I don't know. Somebody else has to step up. And coaches will say that. And as a player on the field, look, if I'm the number 3 wide receiver, I hope and pray you double team those guys. Because now it's my opportunity to show and prove what I can do out here on the field. You know, so that's what it comes down to. Somebody step up and make plays.
It's Darren Doogie Wolfson here from 5 Eyewitness News, and I contribute to 1500 ESPN. The goal is to always have more scoops than Raisin Bran. I pride myself on being up to date on what's happening with the Wolves, Wild, Twins, Vikings, Gopher Sports, the Lynx, United, and everything else going on in this busy sports marketplace. Check out the Scoop Podcast. You can find The Scoop on Apple Podcasts, Podcast One, or wherever you happen to get your podcasts.
So I got a couple of questions for you that are not related to the Vikings-Saints game, but just one more on that. I have been, I'll just run a theory by you that I tend to believe trap games don't really exist, that teams prepare and they're professionals and they go play. And that's always been my thought. And the statistical proof is there too, that when it's been studied, it's very hard to find any sort of evidence that trap games really exist. But I think prove-it games exist, where you are going up against a really top opponent and you've got a chance to show the world what you are, how good you are. And last year the Vikings did it against the Rams, and they've got a chance to do it against New Orleans, and that's why this game is taken to another level and why it's perfect that it's on national TV too. But I think the Vikings have an opportunity to propel themselves into the second half of the season with a win here. What do you think of those concepts of prove-it games and trap games?
So I think first off, a trap game, I think they both exist.
Okay.
You know, and we'd like to say, and there might be statistical evidence that might prove what I'm saying is wrong, but coming strictly from a player's mindset, all right, and we'd like to say, well, you get paid this amount of money, it's your job to come out and perform every day. The fact of the matter is, a lot of these teams are young teams. They don't have, some of these teams don't have, we talked about it last week, they don't have that veteran leadership maybe in all areas of your team, all position groups of your team. And so you might have some lackadaisical play and find yourself down in a game, you know, because you felt like, oh, we're playing this team this week, they're pick a number, 1-6. And so we're going to beat them. You know, this is going to be a stat game. I mean, that type of stuff does creep up in your mind. Now, at the same time, you try to say to yourself, look, they're all pros. They're all going to be good. But we've seen it. We've seen teams come out just walking in a game and play down to the competition. And we've seen teams that are down play up to the competition because they're amped up, because it's almost like a playoff game for them. They know they're going to be out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and knock that team down, you know. So I think trap games do exist, prove-it games, and this is an interesting game, which is why it's on national TV. It's an interesting game because I think the Vikings are trying to prove that, you know, they're not just a one and done team. Like they're not a team that like a one hit wonder from last year. They're trying to prove that they can get all the way back to where they were last year and go on to the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I think the Saints and Drew Brees and Sean Payton and all of those guys do have, let's just say, a chip on their shoulder after that game last year. You know, that loss, the way they lost that game last year. And I would like to think that everybody outside of Minnesota thought the Saints were going to go to the Super Bowl. Either the Saints or the Eagles were going to go to the Super Bowl with the seasons that they were having. Even though the Vikings played so well last year, going into that game, it was like, okay, it's Drew Brees versus Case Keenum. Okay, who are you going to take in that game? With the way the Saints offense was clicking and all of that stuff. Nobody expected the Vikings to come out, even with the number one defense, they didn't expect the Vikings to come out and beat them. And so the way it happened was crazy, and it was electric, all of that stuff. But I think that the Saints are coming into this game with a chip on their shoulder to prove and really blow the Vikings out. And I would like to think, I mean, you want to blow every team out, but I think Drew Brees and Sean Payton are going to have that mindset in this game. You're going to see them take a lot of shots down the field and try to score every single time that they can score.
Okay, so on the trap thing, I totally understand for the player mindset that the player mindset should be, hey, don't let this game trap you into thinking you're just going to show up and beat them. Like, you still have to go about it the same way you always would and take them seriously and all that sort of thing. I think over the long term, what you find is that, you know, any game where it's a team that's really good against a team that's really bad, that the good team ends up, you know, coming out with a win. And, but with the prove it games, I mean, maybe you could say that, you know, beating a good team in the middle of the season might not matter toward the Super Bowl. But I think that where the Vikings are right now, after having 3 straight wins, but they had some things that would make you question them earlier, a loss to the Bills, a loss in LA, that they need it, I think, for their own mentality to say, yes, we believe that we can be a real contender because we just beat Drew Brees again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, this is a prove-it game for the Vikings. And going into the second half of the season, you want to have a big win on national TV like beating the Saints. I mean, you want something like that, you know, but then the next week, the next game that you have, you got to be able to come back and repeat that performance.
The letdown game. That's the other one.
Exactly.
The other one's the letdown game. I knew I was missing one.
Letdown game. Right, exactly. So, you know, this game is a prove-it game, I think, for both of these teams. The Saints, they're a good team, but I think they want to prove that last year was a fluke. The Vikings want to prove that they're a good team again this year. And so, you know, I'm excited about seeing this game.
Okay, so here's my question that goes beyond this one, and I feel the same way, man. I mean, whatever these guys are feeling, I think the media feels the same type of energy of going into a game, even though I have no dog in the fight, but it's just exciting drama, and that's what I'm here for. So let me ask you about a situation that's being talked about a lot in Oakland, because I'm curious about this and just haven't had a chance to ask anybody who is a player in the NFL. The idea of a fractured locker room, I think, is like a thing that we used to talk about because we didn't have analytics. Like we couldn't explain it as well. So we went to, let me see if I can find a player who tells me the locker room is in turmoil, which if a team is 1-6, then they will be more likely than not. And then you've got your headline, then you've got it on TV, and then you've got it on, you know, wherever else it's going to be. But I feel like I want to just say that this either is always a product of losing or basically doesn't really exist, that guys show up and just do their jobs for the most part. But tell me what you think of that concept of the fractured locker room in Oakland.
You know, honestly, I think that locker room has been fractured since, and I think teams and ownership and management, they do this stuff not really thinking, and I almost say for a fact that they do this stuff not thinking about the players, right? So, and I'm talking about hiring certain coaches. Mm-hmm. And I think that locker room was somewhat fractured since they hired John Gruden. If you're a player on a team, and a couple of years ago we were a very good team. We've had some mediocre seasons over the past couple of years in the Oakland Raiders. And then all of a sudden you fire a coach who had this team going all in the right direction. Mm-hmm. You bring in a coach that hasn't coached in a very long time. And oh, by the way, you're going to pay him, what, $10 million a year, $100 million? What has this coach done, aside from winning a Super Bowl a long time ago, to deserve $100 million? You know, and people, you never want to count somebody else's pockets. Is not a good thing to do. But at the end of the day, it's like, come on, man, this dude hasn't coached in a long time. He's been in the booth forever. You know, he's going to come in here and with an old school mentality, and who knows what that's going to be like. And then all of a sudden you come in and one of the best players on the team, oh, you haven't contacted that guy. You haven't talked to him in a long time. I mean, that stuff resonates with players, mm-hmm. you know, and then you trade him away. And it's like, hold on, you just traded away one of our franchise players for what? Y'all couldn't find the money to pay him? I mean, what are we mm-hmm. talking about right now? You know, and so then they traded away Marquette King, who was a very good punter. one of the best in the league, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They traded him away. Then you trade away Khalil Mack, and it's like, all right, now what is going on here? Why are we getting rid of our best players? You brought this coach in who is now going to be here for the next 10 years. I don't know if I want to be here for the next 10 years, or the next 2 years, the next year, period. I don't know if I want to be here with this dude. He's trading away everybody,
right.
you know, and so I think that locker room has been fractured since the day they hired John Gruden.
I see. So, I mean, this makes a lot of sense that it isn't just, hey, we're losing, so we're just mad at each other in the locker room, but more as what management is doing here doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you feel
right.
like no one is really guiding the ship, or they handed over the wheel to the ship to somebody who doesn't know how to run it now. And then the first thing you do is to trade away Khalil Mack. I mean, even though in the big picture, I understand that. Like, if they didn't have the cash on hand until they moved to Vegas to pay him right away. And then also, like, look where your team is at. They are in bad shape in a lot of situations. I mean, if you're keeping Khalil Mack, you win 5 games instead of 3, right? So,
right.
like, what's the difference? Trade the guy away, get picks. But from a player standpoint, it looks like, oh, they're just not paying someone who's amazing.
Yeah, and you can definitely see it from both sides. The players can see it from both sides as well. But at the end of the day, you traded away a guy who was my teammate, a guy who, you know, I've been in the locker room with, a guy who's one of the best players in the league. And he's not just one of the best players, he's one of the most humble players in the league. You know, he's not out here getting in trouble or any of that stuff. So, all right, you're trading away all these guys. So basically what you're saying to me is that we are in a rebuild situation. Well, if we're in a rebuild situation, I get it. You're going to trade away this guy so that you can have more cash to pay other guys. But Khalil Mack, that type of player, they're not coming along every year. You know, it doesn't work out like that. And so, yeah, not until we move to Vegas. But you could cut some other dudes on this team to make space to pay Khalil Mack and satisfy him until we move to Vegas, where he'll get another contract. You know what I mean? There's so many different things that you can do and creative ways to pay guys to at least satisfy them right now, so that in a couple of years he'll be good. You know, and I just don't know. Obviously I'm not in Oakland, and I'm not in their management role, but I don't know if they truly tried to pay Khalil Mack. What we do know is they paid John Gruden a lot of money, and he traded him away. So the players are like, hold on, so y'all had $100 million to pay this dude, but you couldn't
right.
pay Khalil Mack? What are we talking about?
Right. And Vikings fans not thrilled with this whole situation of Khalil Mack ending up in the NFC North. Last thing for you, Donald, on this same topic is there was a report that came out that said that part of the fracturing was around Derek Carr. And again, like, not playing well. So that's always a major part of it. But the article insinuated that Carr shedding some tears after he got hurt in the game against Seattle would have harmed the team's ability to take him seriously as a leader. And since I've been around the Vikings, Donald, the last 3 years, I've probably seen, I'd guess, around a dozen different people in tears. I mean, football is just an incredibly emotional sport. A lot of things happen. It's an incredible journey to follow. It's one of the reasons I love it. And it's possible that that's true, but I kind of thought it was ridiculous to think that would have other players in the locker room look at someone and say, oh, because he, you know, and I don't even know if he was, but that was the report, that he was crying on the sideline, that would take away their ability to respect him. I have a tough time with that one.
My thing is, not everybody shares emotions the same way. Like, okay, and this is obviously the guy who's been in the media and been a player. It's always funny when stuff like this comes out, because it's like, well, who says something like that? I mean, if I'm a player in the locker room and this dude didn't cry, so I feel like he doesn't care. What are we talking about right now? This dude, he still comes to work every day. I'm sure he works hard every single day. Because he didn't cry, now I'm the one that says he doesn't care. I mean, that's petty, that's childish, and I think that's something that just came from the media, you know, just trying to stir up a story out there in Oakland because things are going bad. And so I think that Derek Carr, he hasn't been playing well over the last couple of years. especially coming from his early years where he was having a lot of success out there. But they've made a lot of moves. They've gotten rid of a lot of his weapons, and that stuff it comes into play. But I think once he got paid, they looked at him as a guy who should be able to uplift the receivers around him. And he hasn't been able to do that. He's had some injuries. And so it's been tough out there in Oakland. Yeah, then you traded away Khalil Mack and you brought in John Gruden. That made everything worse.
I think just that the culture of the NFL is thought of by the people on the outside as being just like, yeah, you guys are all just like throwing weights at each other and just fist fighting or something like, and eating giant slabs of meat all the time. But I mean, I feel like the level of emotion that players are willing to show, even in front of the media, to talk about how much they care about each other. And like I said, I mean, I saw Teddy Bridgewater cry when he returned to the field after what he went through. Stephon Diggs got choked up talking about his contract. This team lost an offensive line coach, passed away. I mean, like, I've seen all these things happen, and I feel like it's the sport that I've been around that most shares its emotions with each other, as opposed to kind of how it would be painted in that way.
Yeah, man. I mean, football is all an emotional sport. Sports are emotional, period. You see it in basketball. We've seen it with the Lakers and the Houston Rockets. I mean, guys get emotional. They get in each other's faces. You see it in baseball and the fights. You see it in hockey. Football is a sport that you have to play with emotion out there on the field because you're putting your body through so much. And so emotion is going to come into play because I just put my body through all of this stuff. And we just lost this game. I just put in so much work. Mm-hmm. And we just lost this game. I just did this. I just did that. And you made a horrible play and we lost the game or something like that, And so there's so much emotion that is needed to practice every week. There's so much emotion that's needed to play in the games and get through those games when you're dealing with so much pain and all of that stuff that you deal with. And so it's an emotional sport. But you have to understand, and fans have to understand, that the players are still human. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys are not just robots out there on the field, And so you're going to have some guys who show emotion different. Everybody shows emotion different.
Right.
I wasn't a guy I'm not a person who is very emotional. There are other guys who are emotional, and they might cry. It doesn't mean that I'm not upset about it. I'm ticked off right now. But I'm just not out there crying, But when I go home, I'm going to talk to my family and we're going to have to talk about it. And everybody's going to sit at the dinner table and we're going to listen. Because this is what I'm saying right now. But you have other guys who might want to get things off their chest on the field and cry. I mean, everybody just shows emotion different, man. And so I think the fans and the media have to understand that everybody's human and no two players are alike.
Well, Donald, as always, awesome perspective on the Vikings and the life in the NFL. And let's get together again soon by popular demand. I mean, that's what it is. I got a bunch of tweets that wanted to hear more Donald Jones, so I'm happy about that. Happy people are enjoying hearing what you have to say, and we will talk to you again soon.
Hey, man, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me back. Thanks to the fans that are tweeting me and tweeting you in the show at the same time. Hopefully we can see the Vikings pull off another win this week. It's going to be a tough game, and hopefully it doesn't have to end in dramatic fashion like it did last year.
Well, we want it to end that way, Donald. We want drama. That's what we're
I
going
don't know
for.
if Vikings fans wanted to end that dramatic.
That's true.
I think they'd rather handle it a little bit better.
That's a good point. All right, Donald Jones there, and we will talk to you all again on the next Purple Podcast.
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.
Trump, pipe bombs, and migrants. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. Hours after a number of pipe bombs packed with shards of glass addressed to former President Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and other top Democrats were intercepted by law enforcement, President Trump denounced the mailings and struck a conciliatory tone at a political rally in Wisconsin.
What we cannot do is let our disagreements about matters of policy tear us apart as a country. Can't do that. We must accept the verdicts of elections and remember that America's greatest achievements have always been those endeavors we embarked on together.
Later, Trump denounced a caravan of Central American migrants traveling through southern Mexico with the intent on reaching the United States.
When our country is assaulted by thousands and thousands of people marching, and they openly say, we're going to go into the country, we can't do that. We can't do that. Can't allow that.
I'm Tim McGuire.